Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And today we are going to do one of our periodic Q&As. We try to do these, every 3, 4, 5-ish weeks.
Hmm.
Throw these in there so you guys can submit some questions to us. We have a variety. None of them are even relatively close to the same, so that's
Oh,
good.
awesome! Yeah, I like when it's like that, just because it gives such a damn variety, right? It's not just one topic. I think it's fun.
Yeah, and I don't think they're not really like typical repeat questions that I think we've had a lot of either. So that's good.
Oh, good.
Uh, Gives us something a little bit different. So without further ado, we can
Yeah,
just
man.
dive right in.
Let's do it.
Uh, okay. Okay. Oh, and just kind of a little thing I think it's probably worth dropping in there is because we were talking about it before the show is that when we put up these threads, when you guys submit, please try to put the questions in the thread as much as
Yeah.
possible rather
Yes.
than we appreciate your direct messages like that's and in your comments and stuff. It's really kind, but it just gets really hard to remember if the if we have I have direct message, Marty has direct message, we have a Instagram thread, we have a Facebook thread. It just gets really difficult to consolidate everything. So in the thread is ideal. But now that we have that out of the way, let's first one is what are the accomplishments you guys are most proud of so far with coaching? And what was the greatest struggle you had to overcome to learn from helping others online? That is a deep one. That is good.
Woo.
What do you think? Do
Okay.
you want to try that?
Yeah.
You have to.
Sure. Can you repeat that one more time? What was the biggest struggle?
Yeah, so it's actually two. It's a two-parter.
Sure.
So
Yep.
what are the accomplishments you guys are most proud of so far with your coaching business? And
Okay.
then what was the greatest struggle you had to overcome or learn from while helping others online?
Okay. Okay, so for part one, what were the biggest accomplishments from coaching? Would be definitely just client retention. Like not, I would say, just growing the business and having people stick around for a long time, for years. And then, of course, the secondary would be, of course, having clients win their shows too. But I'll flip it and keep it at that one. I say there'd be the client retention in terms of I'm not a revolving door of clients, right? Like I'll have people stick around. Like I think my longest client is Ashton, and she's going on 9 years now, so that's pretty cool. And then yeah, just being able to continuously help them through a lot of stages of their life in a sense of because I've Ashton's a perfect example because she's had two kids with me and not with me, but I think I know what you mean that because that came out really funny. But yeah, she's trained with me, then got pregnant, and then we did the post pregnancy stuff, and then she got pregnant again. So I think that would probably be the most rewarding part about it. Just people believing in you type of thing and wanting to keep hanging around and keep coaching with you. So and then the greatest struggles would be probably my switch to going to completely online, especially being in Canada when I was one of the first people I think, especially in Alberta, Canada here, doing just online coaching. I flipped to only online, I think in 2015, 16, somewhere around there when I only had, I think maybe 2 or 3 in-person personal training clients for about a year or two before that. So I think it was just going to that, diving that full in was just being I wouldn't necessarily want to say something like imposter syndrome. It's just making that dive. And I kind of lucked out in a sense that the gym that I was personal training at ended up closing down because there's a bigger gym chain here called Good Life, which is pretty much the Walmart of gyms. It just kind of came in to the town I was training clients in at the time and just stomped out every other gym. So it was either go work for a corporation or finally dive all in and be online. So I would say creating awareness for myself being a local coach online to then trying to be a we'll say worldwide or at least nationwide coach because I'm still not super famous or super big in the US but definitely have some US clients, definitely have some Australian clients, some UK clients, which that would have been the struggle. I would say is to get myself known and to get credibility outside of just where I was. That's my answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I'm going to probably kind of echo you on the first part of it, the accomplishments, because there's nothing
Sure.
like I wouldn't just single out like, this client did this and
Yeah,
that's
for
my
sure.
proud accomplishment. Because I mean, people's how they quantify success is obviously going to be different. Like I've had clients at the pro level, clients that just lose weight, and that's huge. And sometimes, sometimes those are extremely rewarding, even though it might seem small to that pro client or whatever. But yeah, I would say just the fact that I'm still here and every year my business grows.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? So that's it, man. I mean, it's just really, and that's what it's all about. The business just keeps getting better and better and better. And I mean, that speaks for itself, I think.
Definitely. Yep, I agree.
So, struggle. I tell you, probably the biggest struggle was just confidence in my ability. And it wasn't because I didn't know what I was doing. It was more so because I put a lot of pressure on myself. Yep. You know what I mean? And I still do to this day, but now I'm able to, now it's like you can make judgment calls and stuff in tricky situations very effortlessly. It's just fluid, but you get earlier in the career. And I tell this to like my mentor clients, confidence is the best thing. You might make the same decision now as you made 5 years ago, but right now it's so much easier because and you've done it. And, so repetitively doing stuff and just getting more confident with the calls and then like kind of like the weird feeling of people, you're someone's coach and they look up to you and they want you, like see, that to me is still a little weird sometimes. Like because now we do like podcasts and speaking and I do these seminars. So people will come up to me at shows sometimes like, well, that's really bizarre to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But stuff like that, just getting used to those things, which is cool. But yep, that would probably be my answer.
Yep. I would say that's probably a very close second. And that's why I kind of said that imposter syndrome, and what that kind of means is like, should I be here? Should I be doing this? Should I really be putting people on stage and making those calls? Because yeah, it was a confidence thing, right? Especially, I would say, I might half change my answer listening to yours and say going from training your everyday client to training competitors. That would have been a pretty big struggle because it was like, who are you? Who am I? Type of thing. Like, especially when you're throwing your hat in the arena and you've never had anyone in a show before. And you have to, because I kind of lucked out. What was at the time was there was a girl working the front desk at the gym that I thought would have done really, really, really well. And she's actually asked me about the shows. And I said, well, I've competed, but I've never had anyone in a show. And I said, here's the deal. I will coach you for free if you do the show. And she goes, really? I said, yep. I said, but the moment you slack off or you don't do like kind of do the assessments correctly or whatever, then we'll shut this down. She said, okay. And she ended up doing really well. And so then I was able to put up the social proof and gain that. So that would be my close second for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. I think we're pretty much, and I think our stories are similar.
Pretty damn similar, man. I would say so for sure.
Yeah, I think there's definitely similarities. So I expected our answers to be somewhat close. But all right, cool. So next one is I am 22 years old and about to start hormone replacement. My doctor is concerned that me being so young, fertility is a risk. What are some things I can do to try to mitigate the issue? I want to go on HRT to improve quality of life, but don't want to have the negative effects of long-term consequences. And we've spoken via DM about this somewhat.
Okay. Guy, go for it. Yeah. So, you definitely take the reins on this one.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of my situation too with with age, I think, because I think I was prescribed I was 22 or I was 21 about to turn 22, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, there are situations where people are clinically, they need it. Whether it's because of self-induced, like they had used, performance enhancing substances or something, but I've run into lots of people. They literally just have been dealt a really bad genetic card and they have some kind of pituitary issue and they just have low testosterone. So even though they're not stressed, their lifestyle is good, all these things are good. So he's kind of in that boat. The thing with the fertility though, is that's not really age related necessarily. You know what I mean? It's like anytime you go on any kind of exogenous testosterone replacement, it's the concern is going to be pretty much the same regardless. Obviously, like your fertility and stuff could go down as you age naturally, but I mean, just because you're 22 going on it versus you 35 going on it doesn't mean that there's any real difference in how that affects you.
Correct.
In your fertility. Now, what I can say just from, and this is totally just observational, there's a lot of people that don't have any issues that are perfectly capable of conceiving. And then there are people that do. And it's really, there's no set rule.
Hard and fast, like cut and dry type of rule. Yeah.
It's just some people, some people don't have any issues and other people do. And there's really no, like I said, there is really no set and dry rule there. You can, and like when I get somebody that's at that age where they might want to, try to have a child, and I just tell them, I mean, first things first, try,
Exactly. Yes.
Just try, see what happens, give it a good, honest give it the old college try. And,
yep.
And for a sufficient amount of time, go through a couple menstrual or ovulation cycles and things like that, and see what happens. And you can, and then there's testing and stuff to, check sperm count, sperm motility, things like that. But outside of that, after speaking with a couple doctors, especially my doctor who I trust, I'm not really convinced that there is a lot that you can do about it. And other than when the time comes, meaning, do you need to stay on something like HCG forever? I would say probably not. And there are going to be varying opinions on this, but it seems like, at least from what I've seen, that if you want to use like a fertility protocol, which often is comprised of HCG, and then a lot of people will now use the HMG, which works very well, or a combination of the two, is use it when the time comes, not like a use it all the time thing, because it will stimulate production, like luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, help with that sperm production. So it's not something that you have to do all the time. That'd probably be my best answer. Unfortunately, there's no way to say like, yep, if you do this, you won't have any issues. So I guess you have to, but anymore, like I said, with those combination of drugs, and even there's even people that they'll temporarily come off HRT just to conceive. They might feel like shit for a month, but they have just enough of that endogenous production there to get a little bit, little sperm count going, and they're able to do it, and then they go back on.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're a betting man, the odds are in your favor in the long run.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
My kind of speech on it, and this is, of course, the same thing, anecdotal, and from reading a little bit about it, and also being, in the arena to be concerned about it too. But the amount of science that we have out now, and also the compounds such as clomidophen, which is the same thing than HCG, is just phenomenal. Like, as in, I think the exact statistic they've used on a couple of the studies of men trying to regain their fertility is something like 98.6% or 97.6%. It was something really, really high. And this would be a combination of using Clomid, HCG, and I think HMG. Am I correct enough if I say that?
Yeah, so HMG is, shit, I can't even remember what the full word is.
Me neither, but that is one that's potentially used, though, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically when I've been reading about the correct use of those ones, it's like something like that you can, like, for the most part, like I said, it's that 97 or 98% of people will regain and be able to conceive again. So I'm just going to make a very big difference, kind of, I don't know, like, we'll say just moderation between the two, in terms of there's a much bigger difference between you being on TRT and coming off versus you being on a cycle and coming off and trying to conceive. I know that wasn't the question, but I do want to make that. I want people to think that they're on some kind of heavier cycle of anabolics, and before you know it, they're going, oh, okay, cool. Marty and Austin said I can conceive. Well, maybe, but not. It's not going to be even remotely as close to someone that's on a true TRT, not something like that's a whopping amount or anything like that. But I had one gentleman that was using, and he did come off, and he used the HCG in the colon. But it took him, I think, 3 months before he was able to conceive because it was low motility and low sperm count on his end. But it did come back. So, and it's like you said, if I was to be a betting man too, I would bet on the fact that you can. And I wouldn't. The term being worried about it is I think a little bit overstated, especially now just how far we've come with the protocols. Just get a really good fertility doc and do some of your own research. I know the UK guys have got it down over there in terms of how much they look into the life extension and the fertility and the sperm motility stuff over there. So, but other than that, I completely agree with you. I think that that's the correct answer that you gave there.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I don't really have much to add there. So
no, perfect.
Okay, next one. We'll move on. Somebody asks, my blood pressure in the mornings is within clinical range, but it is typically pre-hypertensive in the afternoon. Is this normal for it to rise during the day?
Ooh.
Okay, that's a good one. So anytime so first off, yes and no. Well, fluctuations are normal. Fluctuations happen throughout the day, but there's various reasons fluctuations happen. And sometimes it's just like a measuring thing. I mean, if you're measuring at complete rest in the morning versus if you're busy hustling around during the day and you just stop and measure your blood pressure, well, your blood pressure is probably going to be a little bit higher in the afternoon for that reason. But if you're truly measuring at rest in both cases, there's still some, it can definitely fluctuate. Mm-hmm. There's some science that it can fluctuate. But what I normally tell people is if they do have periods where they're kind of treading in that higher blood pressure range, you need an average. You need to not rely on just your A or your PM. And most good doctors should tell you that, you need to check. You need to check your morning, probably check morning, midday or early afternoon, and then check it again at night. And see where you are and get an average. I mean, that's your best bet.
Yeah. I would say to take a look at the situational factors, because what is it when you just wake up? For the most part, that is going to be the most relaxed you're going to be during your day. So you got to take a look at the situational factors. You got to take a look at, you have not just had caffeine. You've not just potentially gone to your job that you don't like. You've not just potentially had some kind of outburst at work or something along those lines. And then there's also, I forget what it's called, but it's like false like I don't know, like you might know the term for me, like a doctor syndrome or something like that, or you're in the doctor's office going to be getting your blood pressure checked, so therefore it's going to give you a higher reading. I forget what the term is called, but there's something along those lines. Am I right there?
I call it the white coat syndrome.
There you go. Yes, exactly. The lab coat or the light coat syndrome. Sure, absolutely. So that can throw it off too. Like I know people that smoke, it can be thrown off. Obviously, if you just worked out, it's going to throw it off as well. If you just did cardio, it's going to throw it off as well. So that's the hugest difference there. Is just take a look, use a little bit of critical thinking, and say to yourself, like, when am I having this done? Were you just stuck in rush hour and now you're pissed off and you're getting your blood pressure checked? Like, just that would kind of be it too. And that's why I would like to see it too, if like someone did it midday and then kind of did like either yoga or some kind of meditation or something that just flat out relaxed them. I bet you that there would be a heck of a lot lower then too. So yeah, the fluctuations, and I really like how you said get an average there, because that's going to be the key to the blood pressure, most definitely.
Yeah. And to kind of just add a little more to that is, while there are fluctuations too, if you notice that your blood pressure is impacted a lot by those lifestyle things like stress and your job and stuff, that's still high blood pressure. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's still, they're like, well, I was just stressed. I'm like, yeah, but if you're stressed like that all the time, then that's still high blood pressure. It's not like this isolated situation where it only happened once in a while, because a lot of people, it's chronically, like they have high blood pressure because of environmental factors, not because they have coronary artery disease or they have all these other things, though their blood pressure can contribute to these things. So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Do they have some kind of heart issue, or do they have some kind of life issue? So
exactly.
That's
yep.
Simple. Keep that in mind. Okay. Ooh, training question.
Sure.
What's your opinion on rest intervals during training?
Ooh, that's
Okay.
very, very broad, but sure.
Yeah.
Like,
That
first
is
off,
broad.
I will say reference our training podcast. We do have a training intensity and a training programming podcast that we put out. Geez, it's been over a year now that we put those ones out, but you have to take a look at kind of what the goal is here for the training intervals, right? Like, are you trying to make the workout kind of more of a cardio thing and do like some supersets or things like that, or are you trying to go for strength, go for something along the lines of powerlifting, and you're going to require a little bit more what's called oxygen debt? So, like, are you breathing really heavy and you need to sit down in between and kind of you're trying to regain all your breath back so you can put out maximal force? So, but yeah, that's kind of the thing that I will look for, especially for if we're gonna just because of like how broad the question is, dummy it down to, we'll say bodybuilding or body sculpting or whatever you want to kind of say for physique improvement. Is I will allow in terms of yeah, I know that sounds like a drill sergeant here, but I will allow breath to return to kind of almost normal or right before normal before you do a set again, because what I find typically, and this is just from coaching over the years, is that men will take a little bit too long in between sets. Now, however, I've seen men that take too short in between sets, and what I say for too long would be something like 3+ minutes would be, in my opinion, would be a little bit too long for you racing in between. I used to say that's people are training jaw a bit too much. They're talking to their buddy, or they're going around listening to other people, or they're just taking too long in between. And then on the flip side of the coin, it's about 45 seconds would be a little bit too short, in my opinion, unless your program is calling for that and there's a really good specific reason. I don't really think I could go over the specific reasons for that, other than if you're trying to do like a circuit or something like that, where you're doing, let's say, bicep, triceps, abs, or something like that, and you were trying to make it into more of a cardiovascular endeavor type of thing. But I would say also take a look at the body part that you're training in terms of rest intervals. Like, you're going to need a little bit more recovery time from a heavier set of squats of 5 to 8 than you are of a set of arm curls that are around 12. Now, that's a little bit too much of a blanket statement. It's not like if you watch someone like Dorian Yates do a set of 12 on curls, he's pretty much bringing the whole house type of thing. But it all depends on what kind of style you're doing that, though. So I would say for something like the general populace, you should wait in between that 1 minute to 2 minute interval range, sometimes creeping up to that 2.5, 3 minute range. And as I'm sure you can definitely echo here, Austin, is that when you're in prep, sometimes you need a little bit more of a break because you're bagged to hell, right? So that can creep up to that 3 minute mark, maybe that 3.5 minute mark, especially if it's getting into that heavier stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, you covered pretty much most of the major situations. It's the reason that's so hard to answer is two things. Yeah, like you said, what's your goal? And then secondly, what's the exercise? And that's going to be probably the biggest determining factor. Just as like a super broad recommendation, sure. I tend to agree with you. Let your breathing return to relatively normal so you can perform the next set maximally. Mm-hmm. You know, you shouldn't rest so little that your performance just dives.
There you go. That keep going with that. Perfect.
And you know what? It's not even going to be the same person to person, because they have found that, like, when they, go into some of these labs and stuff, and they're working with these athletes, that women do recover faster between sets, naturally. But I also noticed that mentally women rush them more. So now you have, these, like, I've trained with, I'll give you an example, like have a female client that I'll train with or something, and they gain like 50 pounds on the lift. And it's not because they got 50 pounds stronger. It's just because they weren't rushing through their damn workout.
They finally took some breaks. That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, use your best judgment there. And two, like if you're noticing you get a good set and then your other sets you're failing because you're like gassed before you're actually failing from a muscular standpoint, that's probably a sign.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's probably a sign that you're either way out of shape. Hopefully that's not the case. Or it's probably more like you're just not resting enough. So yeah. Yep. I think pretty much covered it.
That's okay. That's good enough for me too. Awesome.
All right. So next one, splitting. How would you split cardio sessions throughout the day if duration is exceeding 1 hour? So I'm assuming they're talking probably like steady state cardio.
We're just talking about probably total cardio. Let's say the total is 90 to 120 minutes per day type of thing. It's just more than 60 per day. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're getting up high in the cardio range. So how would you split it? So for me personally, and I don't know where I've derived this from, honestly, uh, I really don't like to do more than about 60 minutes in a session.
I
And
do
you know,
believe there's some science behind that, Austin. I think somewhere out there that they did put, like, even regardless of enhancement and everything else, that there is going to be some kind of catabolism after 60 minutes. I don't know where I saw this either, but I kind of have the same view. So, yeah, keep going there.
I probably, maybe that's what I saw. At some point, I picked that number up somewhere.
Yep, that's right.
So yeah, so when I'm starting to get into that, and that's normally what I'll use with clients too, a lot of the time is if we are having to exceed that, then we'll start splitting it after about that 60-minute mark. But that's not to say that you couldn't split it before that. I mean, there's really no, I really don't go much below. I won't go below like 20 in a session. Something I'm actually going to get the heart rate up and stimulate like some fatty acid release. So there you go. There's a 20 to 60, 20 minimum, 60, 60 maximum,
Yep.
and kind of use that rule of thumb. And again, I mean, if you're deviating 5 minutes one way or the other, if you're doing 65 minutes, it's probably not like a massive deal,
Yeah.
but that gives you some kind of idea. Now, and part of it's just personal preference, to be honest. Like I'll have people that once I start hitting probably past like the 40 to, when I start getting that 40 to 60 range, I'll tell the client, you can split it if you want. I give them options on like how they could potentially split it throughout the day. Personally, well, not always, but I tend to like splitting it for me. Some people don't. They're like, no, I just want to get it all done and out of the way. For me, it's a lot easier, especially when it's a lot of really long durations or really long total duration for the day. It's so much easier mentally to grasp doing these 30-minute sessions, even though they're like three
Sure.
sessions. They're like 3 sessions of cardio a day. I'm like, for me, you know what? That works for me.
Take a look at where you are too. You can just jump outside to your barn gym there and be able to do the cardio too, right? Like, so whereas we have that luxury.
Well, yeah, and that's part of it. Like in prep, I was, doing it was 3 sessions a day, but that was with HIIT cardio. It was morning steady state. It was HIIT. HIIT was normally post workout because that was just when it was convenient. And then another PM steady state session. I mean, that was just how the day was split up, and it would just work for me. And honestly, like most of the time I would just answer emails on my stationary bike.
Absolutely. Yep.
So there's obviously like context and stuff there. And it can be stuff like as simple as like, hey, do you have a treadmill at your house, or are you driving to the gym?
Are you driving to the gym? That's right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, though, if you don't have cardio equipment at your house, you're making a huge mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just telling anyone that wants to do a contest prep or lose body fat, you need some damn cardio equipment at your house.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really kind of lucked out that way because my third floor here, like I did have a recumbent bike. Or sorry, not a recumbent bike. I had a really nice upright bike, and that was kind of my favorite thing to do, was to wake up and do all my cardio. So I'm a little bit different in a sense to you, that I really like to wake up and get it done from in my day, and as opposed to doing it post workout. Now, exactly, time constraints are one thing, and so that's what I'll kind of flip here for the question is that how do you split? Like, what's the ideal way to split up cardio once it's past 60 minutes? Well, you're like doing cardio post training is never the most ideal time, but so why do people do it so much is because of time. Because I understand if you can't get up in the morning, if you got a real early job, you got to get kids to school, and you got time constraints with any other kind of work. Maybe you're a single parent, maybe you're not a single parent, maybe just a parent period, maybe you're it doesn't matter, maybe you work 12 hours a day at your job all the time. So I get it, because I've seen it over the years. But if you can split up your cardio, you are going to be able to give it, and you're going to actually be more productive with your cardio if you do split it up and do it in the morning versus doing it after your training session. Like now, if you're doing your training session in the morning, sure, you can do your cardio at nighttime, but I've always found it is more ideal to get the cardio done in the morning versus training. I'm pretty sure they did quite a bit of science on that in terms of showing that if you do your workout after 2 or 3 solid meals, that you're going to have quite a bit of a better workout than you would if you were to do like a fasted training session, not a fasted cardio, but a fasted training session. So, but also too, when I got mine up to a little bit high, like you said, it would be something along the lines of, let's say it was 2 hours, or sorry, let's say it was 90 minutes, so an hour and a half. So I would actually prefer to do the hour and then do the 30 minutes post training as opposed to splitting them up into 45, and that's just my personal preference. But what's going to govern everything is just you getting it done. Because I actually have a gentleman right now that's competing. He's doing 70 minutes per session as opposed to me splitting it up into 30 and 40 because he does not have that time constraint. He actually can't do the double session due to his time. And I think it's one of the things, too, where his gym actually closes by the time he's going to get there. So if he were to try to squish his cardio in at the end, he wouldn't be able to do it. But I can't recommend more having a piece of cardio equipment at your place because it's some people never use it, but like during a contest prep, when you know this is something serious, this is when you should be doing your damn cardio to get in that shape. You don't want to show up on stage day and not look the way that you should or the way that you wanted to. But just being able to, like we'll say, roll out of bed, grab your water, grab your vitamins or supplements or whatever you're doing, and just being able to do the cardio, that's just the best ideal situation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I echo everything. So context, I think we gave some different scenarios there. So
context and personal preference, right? It's just a matter of like getting it done for sure.
100%. Okay. Right. Next one. Why are stimulants regarded broadly as bad for the heart, some more than others?
What was that? Sorry, one more time.
Why are stimulants regarded as bad for the heart? And he says, he gives some context. Some more than others is ephedrine the least harm of the ones used in bodybuilding, because he was listening to Carl and Nora's podcast. So if anyone doesn't know, he does Superhuman Radio, which is which is like probably the longest running fitness podcast on the planet.
I would say so. Yeah, for sure.
And I guess, and I haven't seen this one, but I guess the gentleman on there had used ephedrine for 25 years daily. Okay.
Wow.
There you go. But I'll tell you, so I'm not in the camp that stimulant use in moderation is actually bad for the heart directly. Now someone with a pre-existing condition, that's a different story.
Yeah.
What is that pre-existing condition? Like, are we talking like heart arrhythmias, or like they have an abnormal EKG, for example? Well, that might be somebody that's going to want to moderate or not use stimulants, or somebody that has high blood pressure, like chronically high blood pressure. Well, of course, if you have taking something that might narrow your arteries, or it's going to raise your blood pressure more. So, I mean, there are situations where, it doesn't make sense to use them or use them heavily. But if you look at like any of the research, and I've seen, it's not like something I've heavily researched, but any of this stuff that I've seen, like in moderation, it's not directly bad. It's not directly bad for the heart. I mean, it's stimulating your central nervous system, so your heart rate will increase, but your body's designed to handle, your body's made to stimulate your central nervous system during any kind of stressor. So it does it when you work out, it does it when you do cardio, like all those things. So it's not, you are equipped to handle that. It's just about, moderation. I mean, I guess that's really it. So unless you're somebody that has a heart condition, I think in moderation, they're proven to be pretty safe.
Yeah. The thing that came out, I think, about these was definitely like the energy drinks. Remember when Red Bull was kind of the only guy on the scene, and it was the little can, and then Rockstar and Monster came out, and then they had these big, you are going to hurt yourself if you consume too much of these energy drinks, when that was always such a confounding statement to me, or just flat out confusing, because I think they weren't looking at context. They were assuming that these were either people that were inactive or highly inactive. It's kind of along the same lines as salt, if you really think about it. How we'll hear that salt is bad for you, and now they're not looking into their actual levels of water. They're not looking into the level of athlete, because real quickly, everyone that trains with me knows I'm such a nutbag about keeping your salt levels high, because that's the part of water that hydrates you. But it's the same thing with caffeine. If I know people that have, like, especially office workers, accountants, we'll say admins, that will blow through these energy drinks like 3-4 a day. And now that is like, in like, what was the key thing that you said? Moderation. Now that's not moderation. 4 of those big rock stars a day is by no means moderation. One a day, or one here and there, one every other day, that is moderation, even if you are inactive. Because we'd be seeing much more people dropping dead from Rockstar. We would see Rockstar, Monster, and Red Bull being sued like left and right. Because there's these little stupid videos that are going around and showing like people's like heart bulging out of their chest and saying, "This is from Rockstar. You had better watch this." And there's no evidence there. It's just like a video of someone lying on a hospital bed with like their heart pounding out of their chest. And it's like, how is this? Where's the energy drink? Where's the proof? Where's the news headline? Where's the actual journalism here, which you will never find exists? So that's really, really wild about the 25 years on ephedrine thing there too. Here really quickly, because ephedrine is one of the compounds I actually enjoy the most. It's one of my favorite, we'll say, bodybuilding compounds. It's legal here in Canada, and I know you can get it there in the US too through Broncaid and a couple other measures, but the reason why it got banned is there was 2 kind of more famous stories. One is more known than the other, but there was some bigger football player that was definitely like an offensive line or a defensive line, was someone that was taking way too much ephedrine outside in the heat, was not drinking enough water, and I think he either passed out or he died or something along those lines. And this is years ago, in the year 2000, when ephedra in Ma Huang, which was the plant that ephedra and ephedrine came from, was kind of starting to get banned. This is when it was in Hydroxycut and everything back in the day. It was in a lot of fat burner compounds in their proprietary blends and whatever. So then I think that got some media attention. So people, all it took was one professional athlete to be kind of hospitalized, and then they kind of looked into it. But the other real reason why ephedrine was kind of give such a bad name is that it was being used to cook meth. So there it really is. That's what it really was, is that people were buying, because back in the day, you could buy the 25 to 50 milligram tabs in about 100 of them per bottle when you were buying just the pure one. Now in Canada, you can only buy 8 milligram tablets of 50. So just think about the difference in that. So that's what, not even 5, or you need 5 or 10 bottles at least to compound to that. And so people were buying this with a couple other things from your drugstore, and they were cooking meth with it because it was so similar to speed in a sense too, right? Because if you overdose on ephedrine, or in terms of take, like, let's say, I don't know, 50 to 100 milligrams, you're to take 2 of those old school ones, that's going to buzz you up. You're going to be jittery and all this other kind of fun stuff. So that was the real reason why it was there. And what did we just say about the stimulants? It's moderation. So those people were definitely not in moderation. You can do that with anything. I know there's deaths from vitamin C, for God's sake. So just keeping that in mind and knowing that, no, chronic use, even chronic safe use, is not going to be like, people be like coffee. Coffee is, I know people that down pots of coffee a day and they're more than fine. So it's just, look at the context on this stuff, and also look where your source is coming from. Is Women's Health magazine showing one article that's saying stimulants are really terrible for you, or is it your Aunt Gladys saying that rock stars are now terrible for you when she really has no education on it at all, other than her friend Hilda's the one that told her about it? So that's kind of my take on the whole thing.
Yeah, so it's funny because I normally don't engage in any kind of, like, I really try to avoid conversations about supplements, nutrition, training, and stuff with a lot of people in public.
Gen pop in public. Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm like, I'll either try to overcomplicate it, or I just get frustrated. So I just don't even like to talk about bodybuilding. When they talk about my bodybuilding, like, how'd your show go? I'm like, it's good.
Yeah, just leave it right at that. It's good. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. But it's funny because I bit on one of these not too long ago about the energy drinks. And
oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's hilarious to me because the typical, and you guys might have slightly different labeling. I know every country is a little bit different, but like if you look at our monster, like the 0-cal monsters, they're about 140 milligrams per can. Okay, so that's a large cup of coffee, because nobody drinks a 6-ounce cup of coffee. That's right. Come on. Nobody drinks an actual quote unquote cup of coffee. It's a damn mug or a big cup. So, so really, if you think about it, it's like the person's like, wow, these energy, they saw me drinking this 0 the white colored 0 Cal Monster. I don't know if you've ever had them. They're pretty good.
Absolutely. Yep, they're pretty tasty. I like those are one of my favorite ones. Yep.
So she's like, oh my God, that's so bad for you. You know, you're a bodybuilder. I can't believe you drink that. I'm like, well, do you drink coffee? Well, yeah, but I'm like, you realize, you know, this is about as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. She's like, but I heard. But I'm like, but you heard, you know, it's like, let's not. I'm like, how much coffee do you drink? Well, I have about 4 to 5 cups a day. I'm like, you drink about 4 to 5 of these a day then. And she was just blown away. And just what, you know, I'm just like, you know, there's just no context. I think it's funny because like now you do have some of these. I think some of them are excessive. Like you have the Bang energy drinks. They have 300 milligrams in a can. Okay.
Some of them are getting a little ridiculous. I agree. Yep.
It turned into like caffeine wars. Who can put it has like, it's gotten slightly better in the last, I've noticed like year or so. Cause it's weird. Like I just kind of pay attention to trends like that just because I don't know, it's just a habit, but, it was getting to the point where they put caffeine in frickin' everything. Like you had, you know, you go to the gas station and they got the jelly beans with caffeine in them. You know what I mean? Like candy with added caffeine, and they've got this with caffeine and that with caffeine. Like Jesus God, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
pretty soon, pasta will have added caffeine into it. For God's sake,
it's ridiculous. I was at the store recently, and there was chocolate. You know, the chocolate bars that they have in like the little checkout aisle that you like the candy and stuff. And yeah, I mean, chocolate already has a theobromine in it or whatever, but it was like shock chocolate or something. It had like 200 milligrams of caffeine in the damn chocolate bar. I'm like, see, this is where people get into trouble because they have no idea what 200 milligrams means. So now they've drank their energy drink, they've had their 3 cups of coffee, and they eat their shock bar, and they drink, you know, and now they're floating around on, you know, 600, 800 milligrams of caffeine in an hour, and they're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's just, I guess, realize what you're ingesting. But yeah, that was just kind of a little rant.
I noticed that especially we'll call it the caffeine wars was with the pre-workouts. Like I remember when like 1,3-dimethylalamine, which was a little bit considered too crazy. Excuse me. They were all of a sudden now, yeah, each scoop went from 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams to 300 milligrams of caffeine, and the law of diminishing returns kicks in like no one's business in terms of caffeine. Like once you hit that 300 milligram mark, like I will tell you, I remember did you guys have that one like Hyde or something like that, like Mr. Hyde? There was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
400, yep.
Yeah, and it had 400. That's what I mean, because I remember I saw 200, and I was like, oh, okay, 200's not bad, but that was per half scoop. So I remember taking a full scoop of this after, and I wouldn't say I'm caffeine sensitive, but I don't really have it as much as I do when I'm during prep. And I remember throwing up from this, and it was just it was an overload, and I was like, really? So this is actually what's happening on this stuff. So yeah, I kind of really toned it down and just watch how much I take in now. And I completely agree with you on the coffee people, because yeah, I think like the lowest, like here's an interesting tidbit for a lot of people. Decaf is actually not decaf. Decaf just means half the caffeine, which just means that the bean is decaffeinated from the extra stuff they put in. Like that blew my mind when I first heard this, because it was one of my friend's dads was drinking coffee at nighttime and was just completely keeping himself up and whatever, and he couldn't believe that it was something was only like 15 or 20 milligrams, but he was having, of course, like you said, not your average whatever ounce cup of coffee, and before you know it, pow, he was having some shitty sleeps.
So we're getting off a little rabbit hole. We only have one more question, so I figured, what the hell, we'll just keep.
Go for it.
But with the caffeine thing, it's interesting because if you look at the actual studies on like the ergogenic effects, you know, boosting your performance, they're really high, man. Like the dosing is really high because Ben, my friend Ben that owns Morphogen, he's he's super well versed on all the supplementation studies, right? What's the data do? What scientific, what doses do we need? And we had talked about it, and and I think there's some body weight. There's also some body weight that plays into that, but just in general, like someone like my size, the doses that they would be using in the study to produce like the maximal ergogenic effect would be like 600 milligrams at once.
Yeah.
You know, no joke. I mean, and it's just the problem is obviously like even if you can tolerate it, you're going to run into like tolerance issues very quickly. I mean, the tolerance from that, you do that for 1 week straight, you've got a tolerance within a week.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's that quick,
So,
eh? Yep.
oh yeah, I mean at that goes, I would think, you know. So yeah, it is interesting. But okay, last question is, let me look over here. Again, this is one of our DM questions, so I gotta grab it.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my, I want to have fun with this one. Okay, so what are some of the oddest foods that you like to incorporate in your diet on a regular basis?
What are some of the oddest foods? Okay.
I guess like so non-typical, not something outside of chicken breast and broccoli. Well,
Holy
I don't know if
crow.
you have any. Do you
know
have
what?
anything?
I'm a pretty, sadly, I'll go with vices, like foods that I probably shouldn't be having. I'm a big sucker for craft dinner, unfortunately. So that would probably be my, sorry?
Like Kraft mac and cheese?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Kraft mac and cheese. Like, yeah, it's just something I like. I would have it all the time as a kid growing up. Like my mom would make it just this way. She'd always make it in the microwave and not on the pot. And believe me, if you've never had microwaved Kraft dinner, it is completely different from it on the pot. And anyone that's ever tasted the way that I've make the Kraft dinner, they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, it's just from the microwave. And so here's the mega secret from my Kraft dinner is that you fill it up with just enough water in a fairly large pan, obviously not metal, but something like ceramic or plastic, a really higher quality plastic or glass, and then you put it on high heat for 3 minutes, stir it for a little bit, 3 minutes, stir it for a little bit, 3 minutes, add butter. I don't like margarine at all. And then sometimes I'll add a little bit of milk if I didn't use enough water, and pow, there's probably my biggest vice would be outside of that. Yeah, I try not to have it too much, of course, because it's really easy to down an entire box of that crap. But yeah, that's what I will definitely say for my answer.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're not fitting that within your macronutrient requirements.
Of course, no, that would be something that like on like a cheat day or an off day for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk. Well, I don't know if you've seen any of the weird stuff that I eat. I kind of like some weird exotic stuff. I don't know where I picked up the habit, because when I was younger I didn't like anything. But I've made it kind of like a little journey through it. Well, my calories are higher, obviously, like I have more room to fit this stuff in, but like the meats especially, I'm really into exotic meats.
Such as
everything, man. I mean, anything you can. So I've discovered way too many websites that get me in trouble because they have everything. There's some of the typicals, some of the like not super crazy stuff like bison and lamb and, and goat, and like they're a little weird, but they're not like super crazy. But there's a couple sites like this Exotic Meat Market, for example, that they have everything. I can get literally anything, all kinds of exotic seafood, shark, eels, like weird fish and stuff, that ocean fish and shit that I've never even thought that you could purchase legally. Yeah. And then all kinds of just, 10 different species of deer from like some island in Hawaii or something, they have all kinds of different birds. They have all kinds of different reptiles. Like I can buy snakes and alligators. And the crazy thing is, not that I would do this, but you can buy like whole parts. You know how you can buy like a whole cow, right? Somebody has a deep freeze.
Yep,
they can
absolutely
purchase the cow or half cow. You can buy like, I can buy a 25-pound shark on there with the head and fin cut off.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, well, that's great. I don't know how to prepare a shark, but nor would I want to. But yeah, there's all kinds of weird stuff. But I pretty much stick to stuff that I can find nutrition facts for. You know what I mean? Like I just do it because I like the different flavors, and a lot of the stuff, like when it's wild game, it has, better fatty acid profiles and all
Sure.
that jazz. I'll do mostly the weirdest stuff, which is like I do a lot of organ meats and things.
Okay.
I really like liverwurst, which is, just for people that don't know, it's just a combination of liver, heart, and kidneys. So you get basically your three biggies on your liver meat or on your organ meats. And they just in one really flavorful ground preparation. So I do that. And I did a couple weird things. Like I did some lamb tongues and I did some testicles and all kind, and shit like that last year. And I kind of do it too because I wanted to try this stuff, but I also like people thought it was interesting on social media just for kind of like a laugh. So yep. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff I do. My whole last off season, I didn't eat chicken once.
Really? You were just burnt out from it, or?
Yeah, I just didn't want it. Like I love all this other stuff, and I would just like, I don't really want chicken. I'm really a sucker for deli meat too in my diet.
There we go. I was gonna say, if you're gonna pick something, and that's not necessarily exotic or whatever, but I love me some sandwich meats too, for sure.
Shit, man, and now you can get some just more decent quality ones. You know what I mean? That aren't just like total junk. Because that's lots of hippies out there. Yeah, you can find some good stuff, but yeah, absolutely. That's
I mean, really like outside of like swordfish and shark, craft dinner's as exotic as it's going to get for me. Unfortunately, I don't know. I guess it's just I know I've gone to there's called Brazilian steakhouses here, and they have like. And like there's where I will get my exoticness out, because like you have some of those there.
I tell you, I took my, not to steal your mic, but I took my
go for it.
My wife doesn't, she likes meat, but she doesn't like it enough for me to spend like $40 on a dinner there for one person. But I took my younger brother there last year, and he's just kind of a typical out from this area, like hillbilly guy, likes his meat and all this shit, and he's like, dude, this is the best thing.
He didn't realize. Yeah. I didn't realize either. Yeah.
Yeah. They're awesome.
Yeah. So that would definitely be my answer though. Cause my buddy Jay was like, hey, have you ever tried that? I think it was called Pampas or something like that. And he was like, it's a Brazilian steakhouse. So I was like, okay. And then one that we had was like, you had like a two colored coin, which was basically looked like a poker chip. And it was green or it was red. And basically when it was green, the people coming around with the meat would say, would you like this meat? Would you like this meat? And there was like different types of like honey glazed steak, maple glazed steak, and then it had like a buffet, and like so then when you didn't want the meat anymore, you just kind of turn it over in red. But like it was incredible, and I would definitely. But yes, it was pricey as all living heck. But that was where I got my jollies out for my exoticness.
Yeah, but you can. I mean, if you eat somebody like us,
yeah, exactly.
I easily ate I think it was. Actually, we went during the day, so wasn't the dinner price, but I think it was $29.99 for one person. I ate. Sure. I know what good meat costs even at the grocery store. I ate $30 worth of meat.
Oh, for sure you did. Yep, that's right.
That's it, man.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, that was we're right at 53 minutes, so that's kind of perfect.
Okay. Cool. That's it.
Well, obviously, then we got some really good Q&As there. Thanks for everyone for putting them out. And yeah, and we'll just mention again there too is that please try your best to put them in Austin's threads there, right on either the Instagram feed or right on the Facebook feed. It just makes it a heck of a lot easier, and then we can kind of just keep them all in one place. But not that you have to stop direct messaging them. Just it is a little bit easier. So yeah, until next time, from Austin and Marty here at the Mind Body Broadcast, we'll catch you next time.